please subscribe and don't forget to press the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload a new video.
Then a couple of these IT stocks are coming off the high point of the day. I think Infosys, that was holding with good gains. Well, that slipped a tad bit. HCL Tech as well is another stock that's come off the high point of the day. So just pull up the intraday chart there. And Ultratech Cement, they in fact are seeing some selling pressure. Keep an eye out on a couple of other stocks as well. If we can pull up the intraday chart of Sandesh, or you pull up a week-to-day chart of Sandesh. Remember, that's a Gujarati newspaper. It hasn't moved in the entire year, Sandesh. And in fact, now it's up close to around 14–15%. For the week itself, I think it's up close to around what? Close to 40% is what it's up. So just keep an eye out on that stock as well. It's not moved a lot for the year. It's one of those Gujarati newspapers. Maybe Q3 will be quite interesting because we had the Gujarat elections. And secondly, the same quarter last year, well, there was the impact of demonetization. So keep an eye out on that one as well. But we have Mitesh Thakur who joins in, as well as Prakash Gaba. Good day, gentlemen. First coming across to you, Mitesh. Your take on the index. We're not able to go towards the 10,500 mark odd. You have any trade on the Nifty as we speak?
Good afternoon, Nigel. I think we are not very far away from the level as well. So I think typically traders would want to see that level being cleared so that you're sure that you're breaking out. So if somebody wants to buy Nifty afresh, the idea should be to buy about 10,510, keep a 35-point kind of stop and look for a 100–150-point kind of rally on the upside.
All right, Prakash, good afternoon to you as well. What's your take on the market record highs coming today?
Not today. I don't think so today. Maybe next week. Looks like the next technical targets is, like I said in the morning, 515, then 555 and 10,615. These are the levels I'm looking at next week. I won't be here to see it, but yes, looks like it's up there. As long as 10,400 holds, that's a crucial support to work with. As long as it holds, dips can be bought.
Okay, Prakash. You're quite excited about your holiday next week.
I would be too.
I mean, I don't mind if I get those 5 days as well. Prakash, lucky you are, but
thank you.
All our viewers want to be luckier. They want to ask you, what picks do you have for us today?
2. I'll go with Bombay Burma. That looks good to me. I think Bombay Burma, the way it's trading, looks like it's heading to closer to around 1700 zones. Stop below 1550 should be fine. May take a couple of days for that, but looks like it's heading higher. Bombay Burma, what a momentum it's seeing. And I like Tata Motor DVR. Even this stock looks good to me. We can see a move until 250 zones, maybe beyond that. Stop below 236. It's a trading play.
All right, you have the DVR and Mitesh has the Tata Motors stock. Mitesh, what are your picks?
In fact, both these stocks are looking good to me, and I have picked up Tata Motors as my call. Buy with a stop at 415, look for a 445 kind of a target is what I think. And the other one is V-Guard, very close to breaking into fresh highs. This is a buy. Keep a stop at 234, look for a first target of 250.
Mitesh, you're with us, right, next week, or you're also going on holiday?
No, I'm unfortunately covering up for everybody else who is on leave.
Thank you.
Right. Great. So
Mitesh is going to actually be the Santa Claus then. Because he's the only one here.
I was covering for Ashwini.
All right. That's the CNBC-TV18 family. But, Mitesh, I wanted to ask you about another stock, Ramco Cements. A couple of days ago, the stock just took off. It went from around 720 to around 800. I spoke to the management, I spoke to competitors in the space that they operate, and we couldn't really come about what happened at that point of time. At the end of the day, people said, well, there was fresh buying. Maybe there was someone who bought. Maybe. We don't know about that. But then people are also talking technically that it's broken out. Now, currently, as we speak, it's moved to the low point of the day. What's the trade over there on the charts? Is it looking like it's paused for breath? Or do you think we could see it dip towards 750?
Yeah. So, Nigel, I think the breakout did happen the other day when the stock opened at 711 and closed at 809. So, roughly about 100 rupees kind of movement in the same day, which is 14%. I think typically these kind of big breakouts do see some mild pullback. I think that process is on. I don't think the stock is likely to go below 750, 745 zone again. And this breakout, I believe, will see prices head towards levels of 900 over the next few weeks. So I would be a buyer at these levels, accumulate a bit more if the stock falls another 10–15 points, and keep a stop below 745. And look for 810 as the first target, but eventually 900 is what I have in mind.
All right, Mitesh. Thanks so much for that, and thanks Prakash as well. Prakash, we won't have you on HDR next week, but Mitesh, make sure you're there so that we do get all those picks. Thanks so much, gentlemen. Well, let's move on then. As the RBI warns of asset quality concerns Going to 2018, two big bankers, they allay fears. SBI says that, in fact, tells us here on CNBC-TV18, they see no further increase in stress levels for the bank, while PNB says that the gross NPAs have peaked out. Let's listen in.
I think this report pertains to the previous year, and the trend to that point was definitely increasing. Even our bank had increased a lot of NPLs, but now the trend has started reversing. So far as my assessment of my own bank and the system is, the data which is available with us is, I think we have already reached to the peak of our NPL levels, and now the trend should continue to decline.
We are not seeing fresh accretion to the impaired asset pools. So, you know, whether you call an account in NPA today or you do it tomorrow, that would be a more narrow view. I think we should also look at the pools of other impaired assets like standard restructured, the watch list, and, you know, S4A, SDR. So there we are clearly seeing that the accretion to impaired asset pools has bottomed out.
You're watching Halftime Report. Look at NHPC. The stock has been strong through the morning, but now it's sitting at the high point of trade. It's suddenly seen a sharp spike up, now up about 4.5%. We spoke with the management actually earlier this morning, and they had said that they're looking at savings of interest costs of about 100 odd crores in FY19. Of course, the modalities of the trading business, etc., are being worked out, and CRC would decide the trading margins, but also importantly, Parvati 2, would be commissioned in Jan, Feb, early next year. So they are looking to generate additional power from there. So NHPC for the moment looking good and continuing to climb, now up 4.5%. But let's get to a CNBC TV18 exclusive. Then Lata Venkatesh caught up with Geeta Gopinath, the professor of economics at Harvard University, and to speak about where she sees India's growth currently and whether she thinks the 8% growth target is around the corner for India.
I would never say the 8% is around the corner. We seem to be, like you said, undershooting it for a while now. Yeah. I think 6%, 6.7% at this point
is the forecast for FY18.
That's right. So I think that in that range, kind of between 6.7 and a little over 7% is where I expect growth to be.
Okay.
The policies and reforms that have been undertaken are not it's not like fiscal spending where you kind of see an effect much more quicker. It's going to take a little longer. Things like ease of doing business, GST reforms, bankruptcy reform, all of that are kind of more slow-moving factors. And so, but the important thing to keep in mind is that this is in the right direction.
Okay.
And that's great.
Okay. What do you think the government should do in the budget? You referred to fiscal spending. Would you like to see more of it?
No, I would not like to see more of fiscal spending. I think that India has won a lot of points for being fiscally responsible, and you certainly don't want to squander that.
Okay.
Now, it's always an interesting argument that maybe growth is even higher in the future than it is now, and so we can spend more. I would be a little cautious about that because growth rates in India haven't hit the 8% target at this point. So I would not push for that. I think fiscal conservatism has been good.
Now to come to the theme of 2018 globally, and here it mingles with the domestic theme. How do you see commodity prices? If global growth is as optimistic as you sounded earlier,
right.
Where would crude go?
I think the projections are that crude will go up some more, but nowhere near where it was before it kind of crashed in 2014, because there are many other sources of supply. There are many other low-cost producers. Like the U.S. is now a big producer of oil. So I think and they're able to very quickly get increase the supply. So in that sense, I think there's a very natural upper limit on where crude prices can go.
Okay. So if it goes towards 70, how do you look at Indian inflation itself, given the backdrop of even crude straddling $65? Do you think we have troughed out on inflation and we should now start worrying domestically?
For India, the pass-through of crude prices into inflation is very high. So the headline inflation numbers are always going to look worse. The RBI, of course, focuses on on core inflation, which excludes these prices, and so they should keep in mind that monetary policy works with lags, and so in that sense, they certainly don't want to make a policy change right now, and then if crude prices adjust in the future, they're kind of behind the curve. So it is an issue. It is an issue. Now, I know that the RBI also pays a lot of attention to inflation expectations, and their most recent discussions flag the fact that inflation expectations have gone up. It's kind of interesting because what we've seen is that people are things like fuel prices are very salient. You know, food prices, vegetable prices are very salient to people. And so that can feed into inflation expectations very quickly. Okay. But to the extent that the RBI doesn't have much control over those prices, it should maybe kind of take that with a grain of salt about how inflation expectations are responding at this time.
Okay. Well, actually, among the minutes of the meeting of the Monetary Policy Committee, there was a reference, I think by Viral Acharya, that the inflation number could be above the 4% mark, 4.5% mark, for a better part of 2018. If that were the case, should the MPC hike rates or shouldn't it?
I see an argument for not raising rates at this point, for sure. I mean, there is the band of the plus or minus 2 percentage points. And given that growth is still, you know, it's not as if it's growing at 8% at this time, I certainly wouldn't make an argument for raising rates.
Well, India has been growing below trend at a time when the global economy has grown well and better than the trend. Lata Venkatesh Kara with Morris Opswell, chief economist at the IMF, to talk about whether or not he thought this was an aberration.
I think it is an aberration. There were two big events, policy events, this year in India. One was the demonetization, and the other was the introduction of the GST. Now, both of these policy changes carry long-term benefits, but in the short run, cause some disruptions. The demonetization to households and small businesses, the GST, just people getting used to it, ironing out some initial glitches. For this year, we expect growth in India to be 6.7%. For next year, 7.4%, more in line with past performance. Though we view the long-run potential, assuming economic reforms progress, as more like 8%.
Okay, or 8%. Well, we are also waiting for that number. But do you think, therefore, the GST glitches get ironed out pretty quickly in calendar 18 itself?
Yeah, I mean, the GST is a work in progress, but the economy is adjusting. It's also adjusting and has adjusted to the demonetization. So we see growth gradually increasing into the next fiscal year.
Well, just a word more on history, on the past, and then I would like your estimates of the future. Demonetization. As an economist, how would you assess the costs and the benefits?
Well, the costs were largely temporary. We see permanent and substantial benefits in the form of reducing informality in the economy, integrating people more into efficient payment system, into digital payments. So the benefits are definitely going to be there in the future.
Okay. About the future itself, the other thing that has stymied India's growth this year and even last year has been the twin balance sheet problem, as we call it. Banks riddled with large NPAs, non-performing assets, and several corporates as well, over-leveraged. Do you think we have crossed the hump? How has the NPA resolution looked to you from the outside?
Well, I think the government has taken some very important first steps. The Bankruptcy and Insolvency Code, which has, by the way, prompted the World Bank to raise the doing business score of India significantly. The promised recapitalization, very important, the asset quality review. All of this is critical for getting a handle on the problem and starting to address it. Now, that being said, these are important and difficult first steps, but more needs to be done to complete all of these reforms. See how the bankruptcy code works in practice. In terms of the public sector banks, they clearly need more in terms of governance reform. We need to reduce their weight relative to private finance in the financial sector as well.
Well, as you pointed out, the IMF improved India's score in ease of doing business. Primarily, I mean, the big jump was in the area of resolution, which is because of the bankruptcy code. What can be another big trigger that can push India up, you think?
Well, I think completing these reforms is a big task, and I think India can do it. But I think if markets see more on the governance front, they'll be very positive. Assessors will be very positive. India's done other very important steps in the area of opening up FDI, and that's had a big payoff for the country.
Well, I don't know, but there was a recent amendment to the bankruptcy code through an ordinance, which doesn't allow owners of NPAs, owners of defaulting companies, to buy back their companies in the resolution process unless they clear overdues. Do you have any particular view on that?
No, I don't. I mean, I think that's a sort of in the weeds, okay, as far as I'm concerned.
Okay. Well, you know, largely that's because the public sector banks found it a moral hazard to write down loans for those they considered responsible for the defaults in the first place. Do you think continuing with too much of public sector banks is a moral hazard?
Well, having a big public sector influence opens the way to non-economic considerations, and this is inevitably going to reduce the efficiency of the system. So it's important to shrink that footprint over time.
Okay. What would you want by way of public sector bank reforms? You refer to governance reforms. Is there anything particular that you're looking for? Independent boards, you know, anything that reduces the non-economic component of decision-making, of credit allocation, allows more competition into the system is going to be a good thing.
The mid-cap index is keeping in step with the frontliners. We have all the three indices, in fact, trading with gains of around 0.4% to around 0.5%. So good going. The mid-cap index as well as the Nifty Bank should be included in that list. But Manisha Gupta is with us. She's been bringing us good news for most of the year 2017. Today she's in red. Manisha, things looking good on the cryptocurrency front. Not looking too good. You're in red. How's it going?
Bit by bit.
Bit by bit.
Bit by bit, the reality has been bitten.
Oh yes, it has been. You're very well said, actually, Sumaira. That exactly is the case. We haven't been able to hold on to the higher side, especially for this week, and last 24 hours have been savage when you look at the cryptocurrency market. Everything in sense of digital currencies has been declining. So Bitcoin, of course, is down by 24%. If you look at Litecoin, that is down by 32%. Ethereum, Ripple, all of those major currencies with major market cap is something that really has been giving away. There is immense amount of profit taking there. And this week, of course, really seems to be going down there. Also, you know, this is a 24/7 market. But as we approach into the year end and with the kind of huge profits or investments the cryptocurrency investors have been sitting in, this shouldn't really come as a surprise. And having said that, this sector actually sees a lot of volatility. 20% move or up or down is something that's quite a given. We've seen nearly $3,000 to $4,000 move up in a day when that has really happened, hitting record highs on the higher and higher side. But that really is the price move that you have seen in this year, from $800 to $13,000. And remember, we have been up to $19,000 on the higher side as well. So from those kind of highs, we've come off. But even then, this is a good 1,600% of a move that you are seeing in Bitcoin. Ethereum, as you just saw, $8 to nearly $650 is how that one is trading right now. So from single digit to 3 digits is what we've seen happen in many of those currencies. So Ethereum is the second best currency. Of course, all of these work on blockchain, whether it is Bitcoin or Ripple. Ethereum works on Ether as a technology on the backside. And many of these other currencies are actually faster in sense of speed, security, reliability. There are banking and financial institutions actually trying to go for many of these blockchain and cryptocurrency technologies. Today, as we've been saying, it hasn't been such a great day. But when you see YTD or year-on-year basis, many of these currencies actually have gone 80 to 100x on the higher side in this year alone. So $9 to 650 for Ethereum, and Ripple should come on your screen as well, because that really seems to be doing quite well. 0.01 to 0.98 is where we are trading in sense of that one. So very strong gains coming in for many of those other currencies as well.
This evening
I am at 5:30 trying to tell you on what has happened in 2017 and what should you be doing in 2018.
So keep our eyes peeled and our minds open.
Absolutely. But a lot has been happening in other commodities as well, and Himanshu Gupta is waiting by to tell us what his strategies are as we hit into the long weekend. Himanshu, hi. What is it looking like for the crude oil prices? Because yet another week of gains here, but should one be holding long positions ahead of the long weekend?
Hi Manisha, good afternoon, and wishing you and all the viewers of CNBC-TV18 Merry Christmas. I think crude oil prices are holding firm, and after a very sharp run-up that we have seen post-October till the month of December, I think it's just a brief consolidation, and it is expected to move and break out on the higher side. I think it makes sense to continue holding long positions in crude oil. In the immediate short term, we can see prices moving as high as $60, $61 for the WTI. And on the MCX crude, we can expect prices to hit levels of 4,000 in the month of January. As far as the trading strategy for the day is concerned, one can initiate long around 3,700, 3,710 in the January month's contract for the targets of 3,750 for the intraday, and 3,680 would be the recommended stop loss for today.
Okay.